There's more than enough money to be made out there, but I truthfully believe there's only a certain person who can truthfully be able to do this, who can get rid of the 9 to 5, get rid of the constraints in their life, and take a step forward in entrepreneurship and fully believe in themselves. And today I want to share that experience with you all, with not just myself, but with a special guest that I have coming in named Onyi, who is a serial 8-figure entrepreneur who started from nothing and was able to build an empire in only a couple years. I hear all the time about how many people want to do entrepreneurship, how it's so easy to do, anyone in the world can do it, but they don't take in consideration what the real work is behind it. Now look, it does not matter your age, your gender, your background, even how much money you have. It's all about the mentality, and that's exactly what we're gonna cover today. Well, what's going on, my boy? Happy to have you in here. Appreciate you coming. So today I wanna just go ahead and, explore a little bit about what entrepreneurship means to you, what you've been through, the journey that you've gone through, and honestly, how you've got to the point today. So, go ahead and introduce yourself and, what you do and, how far you've been able to come in with that as well.
Awesome. So my name is Onyi. I am the CEO of Glow Tanning, which is a sun spa franchise. We're in like 14 states and have a little over 75 locations.
That's what's up. So you, at 21, started going into the bodybuilding, trying to do the supplement store. And at the age of 21, this is probably the same time you just graduated college, right?
Yeah.
So after college, you immediately just decided to be an entrepreneur. What led you to taking and making that decision?
It's one of those things where, some people, a worker is somebody who, follows by the rules and, is able to kind of fit into, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? And is able to kind of like fit in what society's mold has of for you. For me, I just wasn't a rule follower. I got suspended from school all the time. I wasn't bad where I did anything actual bad, but I just wasn't a rule follower. So kind of knew that I wanted to, make for myself. And that's what kind of led me to be an entrepreneur.
So you took the leap of faith. You were able to start franchising, also be able to own multiple different locations for yourself. And now that we're heading into 2024, what is the annual revenue that you're able to make with Glow a year?
It's north of 50.
Around 50 million a year?
Yeah.
50 million a year, and you can remember the moment probably where you were at zero, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you believe that your mindset has changed from the 0 to the 50 mil in regards to knowing what you wanted to achieve and how you were going to achieve it?
Yeah. So it's one of those things where there's a certain threshold in terms of that's Glow as a whole, not my individual take home is 50 mil. Just before people start calling me cap in the comments.
People be capping.
The thing is, it's all like relative, right?
Yeah.
So when you make your first $10,000, you have your first $10,000 in your account, that feels the same as when you had your first $1 million in your account, because it's all relative to where you started. When you get from 10 to 100, it feels the same as when you got from 0 to 100. So honestly, it's just like putting the work in, consistency. And really biggest thing to me is focus. So like just staying focused. There's a lot of things that can kind of take you off the path of, actually getting to where you want to be. And they say no one actually fails, they just quit.
That is 100% true. I think that, during even my journey, it was many moments where I was down bad, but there was never a moment where I felt like I was going to give up. Didn't matter what God was going to put in my life, even if it was going to be a hard thing that I had to go through, I was going to see the light at the end of it, no matter how it was going to happen. So even for yourself, like explain some of the, maybe one of the roughest or hardest times that you had to overcome, and what did you do or what did you say to yourself to make you overcome it?
Yeah, so probably like the hardest, honestly, was probably location number 2. So location number 1 opened in 2010, location number 2 opened in 2015. And at the time, nothing was going very well. It just had like a semblance of success. And when I was opening location number 2, I didn't have the money to actually do it. I couldn't afford to get financing. So I was literally taking every dollar from location number 1 and putting into location number 2 and kind of self-funding. So I couldn't even afford to, at the time I lived with my brother, we shared a car. The girlfriend at the time, we would buy like a foot-long sandwich at Subway and split it. Like that's how broke I was at the time, even though I was opening a second location. And the bank would not give you funding. So things are all like relative. So it's like, right now I'm building like 20 locations. It was actually more stressful building that second location than it is building 20 right now. Because, when you're building 20, you have the money. If I want to go to the bank I can go to the bank and say, hey, I want $10 million, they'll give it to me. Back then, if I wanted to go to the bank and say I want 50,000, they wouldn't give it to me. So it's definitely was harder back then. And that's probably like the biggest struggle.
I think it's infrastructure. And that's a lot of things that you're mentioning is a lot of people try to run and jump into starting a business, but they don't put the time into the infrastructure that's needed. Absolutely. And I mean, that's the number one reason I failed my whole first year is I thought I could just skip the gun and skip different stages. And without that infrastructure, I was going to fail every single time. So with that being said, you got yourself in the position of creating the infrastructure. So how were you able to just cycle and repeat and replicate the process multiple times? And with that structure, not have to worry about failing while doing so?
Probably the number one book that any entrepreneur should read is they call it E-Myth. So with the E-Myth, it talks about how essentially the way the systems and processes that you put in place are the same whether you have one location or 5,000 locations, right? So once you have that system in place and the process, then literally so easy to continue to replicate because you're not really replicating anything. You're just adding on to a system that's already there, right?
Same thing with e-commerce, man. It's like owning multiple e-commerce brands, running multiple different dropshipping stores. It's not a difficult thing if you've already built it out and it succeeded one time. You just keep replicating and making little tweaks along the way. And, that's allowed you to be able to get to the point that you are today. So from one store to now doing over 20 stores this year, I mean, it's definitely a big impact that you've been able to provide. And now you've been also able to, as you mentioned, help other people be able to do that as well. So what was that difference for you knowing that you already knew you could build it out for yourself, but you were able to build it out for others as well?
Yeah, no, that's huge. So, and that's the thing I enjoy the most. Like because like if it came down to it and just said, if I wanted to, buy any house that I want, any car that I want, buy a jet, do all that, all I need to do is own 10 glows and just run them very effectively and efficiently, and I can do that. But the part that is more enjoyable is actually growing the brand with people that you like, that you enjoy, that, have trusted in you to kind of, help see them become successful because they're not successful because of you. They're successful because of the hard work that they put in, but it's the blueprint and the operation that you and your team have helped put in place that helps give them the structure that they need to put the work in to be successful. So when they come and they say, hey man, thank you so much, couldn't have done this without you, that means more to me than any amount of money or anything else, any accolades or anything else that I can do, because that's the part that actually is rewarding.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you define your success by the success that you teach others. And that feeling, knowing that you just had an infrastructure that you had to go through and make a lot of mistakes along the way to be able to do, and you could just hand somebody a recipe book that doesn't put them in any position to fail but succeed, I think that goes such a long way. And in turn, you're starting to realize that your system really does work too.
Yeah,
because it might have took you, 2, 5, 7 years to be able to do that. But if you just give this infrastructure to somebody else, what is that turnaround time for them to be able to see some of the successes that you had when you first started off?
I mean, it's immediate. We have stores that open, like we had a store that opened, it was a pharmacist and his wife that opened it October 31st, so Halloween day last year. By month 6, they were profiting $40,000 a month.
Wow.
So, that's a very well success story. That's not everybody.
Yeah.
But if you look at our FDD is called a franchise disclosure document. So every franchise in the world has to have a FDD. And if you go to item 19 on every one, that shows the financials and it's public. So our FDD were, the most profitable tanning franchise, and we're more profitable than 90% of all franchises in general via our FDD. So, we're extremely happy where we're at. We don't have one franchisee that's not happy with the brand, which is not, usual with most franchises. So, we're blessed and we're monitoring our growth. We have 1,000 people a year that apply and we only take like 10. And that's the truth. So for us, it's just like making sure that we grow the right way.
So let's talk about that for a second, because, just like you got a mentor, I ended up getting a mentor at the very beginning of my career. And I'm not going to lie, it was pretty difficult to find out who was the right person to invest in, who was the right person to take advice from. So, how important do you believe getting a mentor is? But also more importantly, how do you decide who the right mentor is?
Track record. So, I mean, you're just looking at track record. So reviews, if the person's charging for mentorship, looking at, what have they done? Like proof of concept, right? Somebody who's mentoring me, there's so many like, say, mentors for, let's say in your space for dropshipping, right? So if somebody's trying to mentor me for dropshipping, but they don't even know, they made all their money from selling mentorship and not from actually doing dropshipping, then I'm probably not going to use them, because you're making your money from the education, not from the actual doing it. And that's where you're strictly making your money. So it's like, I want to actually see results. And then if this is what they do, let me see the results of the people that they have mentored previously. Like, how are they doing as well? So those are things that I would like pay attention to if I'm deciding on who's going to mentor me.
I mean, I definitely agree with that. And I also think it's like, even for me meeting you, you've been able to teach me a lot along my way. And, it's only been a year and it happened just at random. I mean, we were sitting there at a birthday party and I saw you pull up in the Rolls Royce and I was like asking everybody at the table, I said, who is this man right here? And they're like, oh yeah, he's Onyi. He does this, he does that. And I was like, bet. And I end up remember coming up to you that day and I was like, yo man, like nice to meet you. My name is AC. What do you do? And from the second that you started talking to me, you just kept everything open. You didn't BS me. You didn't try to hide behind some curtains. You just kept it real from the very jump. And I think that's what attracted me to you, because that's also what I do for the people in my audience. I give everything, and a lot of the things you've been telling me, not gatekeep at all. And that's something you've always said for yourself. You're like, I'm just going to give it all every time and people can do what they want with it. So how important do you believe it is to putting yourself in situations and network and be around other people that you can learn from, but also, not gatekeeping like a lot of these people out here do?
Yeah. So on gatekeeping, if I give out, like on my social, I give out everything, right? I'm not gatekeeping anything, but for me, I can go to somebody's YouTube and they tell me exactly how to do something. I would still rather, for the people who are looking at potentially, like they have a skill or they have a something that they can sell, and they're thinking about gatekeeping or they unintentionally gatekeep. If you're doing something like, say you tell me you're like a website expert, right, or a SEO expert, and you literally have online and you tell me exactly everything I need to do. Me personally, I would still rather pay you to do it for me, because I assume, which is probably, my assumption is probably correct, that you would do it better than me, even though you gave me all the knowledge. You either have more time than money or you have more money than time, right? And at one point in all of our lives, we traded time for money. And 90% of the people who are watching this, 95% of the people who are watching this, they still do, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. But once you have a certain amount of money, you now have more money than you have time. So how are you allocating that time? And for me, like the formula that I use, it doesn't matter if you make $30,000 a year or you make $3 million a year, right? You should use this formula. And from when I made probably less than 100K till now, 7+ figures, what I did was I would take whatever I made on my tax return, and I would divide it by 52 weeks and divide it by 40 hours, which is what you would get paid if you were on salary somewhere, right? And whatever that number is, so at one point the number for me was like, $100 an hour. Anything I could pay somebody to do less than $100 an hour, I hired out. That number now is significantly more. So there's nothing that I do. Like I don't cut my own grass. I don't cut my hair. I don't wash my own car. I don't even wash my own dishes. I do nothing. Yeah. Right? Because the time that I'm spending doing those things, I could be spending doing other things that are way more productive that would make me more money, or things that I actually enjoy doing. So there's things that I do that I make $0 doing, but I enjoy doing it, right? So wealth is about freedom more than it is about money, but money also buys you freedom.
Honestly, one of the hardest things that people have to figure out when they are trying to start entrepreneurship, at the very beginning of your journey, you had nobody probably telling you, you should do this today, you should do this tomorrow, you should do this the next day. How were you able to stay organized with yourself, organized with your thoughts, and organized with your goals without straying away from it with all the other things around life that are happening around you?
Yeah, so that's just discipline, right? So it's about focus. So it's like, it's no different than, and maybe a little bit of it was like, bodybuilding, which for me, when I was a bodybuilder, I was like, I was one of the top national bodybuilders. And through that process, right, you can only eat X. You have to work out this many times a day. And at the same time, you still have a job. Like I still had Glow and I was still working. I was still the CEO. So if I look back, I don't even know how I had time to do that stuff,
Yeah.
right? So I had three or four different hats and jobs that I was wearing. I never enjoyed working out. Like I don't outside of cardio, I don't work out, right? So I just do cardio and that's it. And I haven't worked out in 7 years. And I was a bodybuilder. I did not enjoy lifting weights. I just had a goal that I set for myself, and no matter what, I was going to achieve that goal, and I was going to be the best bodybuilder that I could be. I was going to make sure I did not cheat on my diet, X, Y, and Z. Entrepreneurship is kind of the same thing. So it's like, if you have a goal, you set that goal, and no matter what, nothing strays you away from that goal. So I'm very big on like goal setting. So it's like listing out at the beginning of the year, what are the 5 to 10 different goals that you have for that year, and staying on task with that goal rather than just having a random accomplishment. And then you say, okay, yeah, I achieved this year. It's like, no, that's cool. That's like on the back burner on the side. Which one of the 10 things did you list out did you achieve this year? Did you achieve all 10? 5 out of 10? If you achieve 5 out of 10, that's 50% completion rate. That's not good, right? So that's how I judge myself, and those are the things that I stay focused on. So it's like setting the goal, achieving those goals, staying focused on achieving those goals, because I know at the end of the year, if I didn't achieve those goals, I'm going to feel like I failed.
And I see that's very common in myself, other entrepreneurs themselves, is they set goals and again, they do not stray away from them. And I mean, from the very beginning of my career, I remember being in my little 600 square foot apartment with an eviction notice on there. And I remember having goals literally hammered into my wall throughout all this apartment because I was trying to put myself in the mentality to be obsessed with whatever I needed to do to hit the goal. And I think that that's very important that you spoke upon that, and that truthfully, there's nothing that can stop you at all. Like there's not getting sick. There's not going out to the clubs. There's not trying to keep up with the Joneses. There's nothing that you are doing or would allow to happen around you would stop you away from hitting those goals. So what is that feeling of entrepreneurship, of being obsessed? Because I think that's for me, right? Being obsessed with hitting your goals. How do you like turn that on? How did you find yourself in a position to just flip the switch and say, I'm going to be obsessed with doing this, and no matter what I'm going to do, it's going to work no matter what, even through the bullshit? Because this shit was not easy.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, there's a couple of things. Like one thing you said about like, nailing up your goals, right? That's visualization, right? So like, you got to be able to visualize it. I don't like nail up the goal, but I literally have, I visualize everything. I daydream about what it is I want to accomplish. I've already accomplished it. I've already achieved it in my mind. So I see it before I even, believe it. And then when I see it, I now believe, okay, cool, this is going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to figure it out, and this is going to happen. Yeah. And that's the way it goes. And I've not ever set a goal for myself that I have not achieved. So it's just like a singular focus on whatever that goal is. But also when it comes to like achievement and all that, a lot of times, somebody has, they made 6 figures and then they want to go buy the super nice car, whatever. Well, if you had a goal that says, hey, I'm going to save $100,000, right? I'm going to get a raise at my job. I'm going to buy my mom X, or I'm going to pay my mom's house off, right? And she doesn't owe that much. She owes $50K on it. If that's your goal and you are actually, focused on making that goal, then you're not going to go buy yourself a nice car, because until your mom's house is paid off, until you have $100,000 in your savings, until you got that raise at your job, you can't afford, right, to actually do that. So a lot of times when people make decisions that are just not like conducive to like, themselves or their growth or whatever, it's because they don't have any goals. They just are like living day to day. Because it doesn't make any sense to me how like somebody loses their car.
Or they have the goals, but they lied to themselves on what the main goal was. For example, right? You could sit here and say, my why was to be able to, have my mom retire or to be able to buy her house or anything like that. I truthfully, from the very beginning of my career, my why was make sure my mom didn't have a mortgage. That's the first reason I started all of this. And this first check that I ever got, I remember texting her and literally sending her bread and said, put this towards your mortgage for the next 6 months, and I'm gonna make sure I can put it on auto pay after that. Mind you, I'm still sitting here grocery shopping every week, not going out to eat, not buying new cars. I'm sitting here in a 2003 Camry while my mom is like just doing better than she was before. But that's because I knew my why and I wasn't lying to myself on the why. This is what I see all the time is people will say, look, I'm trying to take care of my parents. I'm trying to do this, but you're buying a chain every week. You're going to the club every single week. You're trying to entertain other people every week. So, knowing your why and sticking to it, you have to believe that for yourself before the money comes.
But so to speak on that, right? So one thing that I do is when I like my goals in my notes of my phone, it's shared with like 5 people. So at the beginning of the year, I put it in there and I share it, right? The reason why is accountability. And they have their goals in there as well, right? So the reason why is accountability. So then at the end of the year, I can look back and say, I accomplished all these things or I did not. And there's people there to hold me accountable, right? And number 2 is also like verbalizing your goals. A lot of times when somebody says something, if I say like my goal in the next, 3 years is to buy a jet. It's 1,000% going to happen. And I verbalize it. A lot of times if you verbalize your goals and they make people uncomfortable, then that means you're just
not around the right people.
Not around the right people, right? If I tell you what my goal is and I tell you, I say, hey, I'm going to get a jet in the next 3 years, that's not flexing. That's not anything. That's just literally, especially for you, right? You're just like, all right, that's dope. I believe you will do it. But some people, you can't tell them what your goal is because they're too small-minded, right? That's not something that they, for themselves, see as ever achievable, so then it can never be achievable for you, right?
Yeah.
So I verbalize these things for multiple reasons. 1, hold me accountable. And then 2, when I accomplish it, I can go and say, AC, remember 4 years ago, I told you I was going to get the jet?
Yeah.
Boom.
I mean, the greatest leaders in the world all start off with a vision. Mm-hmm. And for myself, from the very beginning of my career, I was always 5 to 10 years out in my head. Like, seriously, like I talk to people right now and even at Supreme, and I talk to them and they're like, so, what does next year look like? I'm like, next year? I mean, I can tell you next year, but I can tell you the next 3 to 5 years. I can tell you the next 5 to 10. So were you always a visionary person, or did that come with the success that you started getting?
No, I've always been like that. So like the biggest thing is like, I believe in 1, 3, and 5 year goals. To me, anything past 5 is like procrastinating. So like, I'm like, okay, cool. Like what can I achieve in the next 1 year? Or really, it's really the next 3 years, right? What can I achieve in the next 3 years? And then in a micro dose, what is the next year? So like there's things that like, there's just very basic things. Like my 1 year goal for 2023 was like, do cardio at least 4 times a week, read the Bible more, build the house that I'm about to start building, Tampa townhomes, this X, Y, and Z. Last year's goal, one of the big goals last year was be debt free. It's a couple $1 million of debt and paid it all off, because I said, okay, be debt free, which means, how much, like essentially any big chunks of cash that I get, I'm shooting it as quick as possible towards the debt. And at the beginning of the year, if you went and looked at 2021's revenue or numbers that I personally made, there's no way that I could be debt free in 2022.
Yeah.
Right. So you set a goal that could be achieved, but it's not as if like it's for sure going to happen. If it's for sure going to happen, then you shouldn't even have it as a goal. Right. So it's like you put that down. It's like, okay, well, now I got to go figure it out. How am I going to do that? And it happened. So it's like, things like that, and just being able to kind of like, see things out. And there's certain things like if you say, hey, I want to have 3 more kids. That's not something you can put on a 1 year goal.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
So if you put that on a 3 year goal, and then, year 1 is going to be, I want to have 1 to 2 more.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like being able to kind of, compartmentalize your goals into segments, or segment your goal, really is a better way to say it.
And speaking of having kids, you have a little one, I have a little one. some people don't believe, or they get their mindset so closed in when they have kids that, that sky is the limit type of mentality is kind of over. You have to change that because you're a parent now. How were you able to balance everything you're doing with also having a kid?
Yeah. So I mean, when I'm with my daughter, everything's about her, but also because of like the freedom that I have, then I just take her with me when I go to work. So I work with her almost constantly. And it's one of those things, just setting yourself up in a good position. Some people, I have people in my DMs all the time that like, hey, I have a 6-year-old and I'm 26 and I'm living paycheck to paycheck. It's like, what can I do? Well, that's very broad, but I'm not sure. Like you made some bad decisions that have brought you to this point. Does that mean you can't get out of it? No, not at all, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, having kids when you're ready and you're set up, and then the right timing to where you have the freedom to be able to move around and like make sure that you are giving your kids the best that they can get. And I'm not talking about even like financially, but the best of you, right? Is super important. So like, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to do that. You could just have a job that's flexible or X, Y, and Z, whatever. But, those things are important.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I agree. And speaking about you bringing your daughter everywhere, it's funny because anybody who's watching who's ever been in my headquarters at Supreme, everyone has seen my son in there every single week, all the time. And he's just another part of me because that's the freedom that, I work towards. And, another thing I want to discuss with you today is about networking as well. Throughout your journey, I guarantee you've had people tell you can't do something, or they've tried to tell you some of your goals are unrealistic, or maybe you've had friends around you that you've had to cut off because they weren't helping you get to the vision that you want to get to. How did you decipher early on in your career, like the type of people that you wanted around you?
Yeah. So for me, I'm like, it's a self-proclaimed lame. Like, anybody who knows me, like all my friends are like, like that dude, like the people, college and high school, everybody, like they were, whatever. I never was. And also on top of that, I don't drink, I don't smoke, never have, right? So I don't enjoy partying, none of that stuff. If you see me go out, I'm sitting on the couch. I'll buy bottle service so I can sit down. I don't drink, So it's like, it's one of those things where, for me, because I'm like that, no one really can get me distracted. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, I have friends that are like, hey, let's go out all the time, blah, blah. Or sometimes I guess I do have some, but I just tell them no.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things about having the right people around you. You have different, you gotta love people for who they are. So there's certain friends that, you call to vent to or express, whatever that, hey, I can talk to this person about my relationship or about, whatever. And then there's certain friends that you have, and it's, it's about business. And it's like, when you have a big decision to make in work or business, you call them and you ask them for their advice. And there's certain friends that you turn up with, and so it's just having a variety of friends. And there's your day ones. Y'all might not even have that much in common anymore, right? But you still love them for who they are, and they've been there with you from day one. So for me, I haven't really had to cut off many people in general. That's just, I guess, because I'm a little different in terms of like, I don't party, I don't drink, whatever. Then it's like, and everybody knows that. It's like a little hard for me to have that friend that pulls me into, getting out of my normal routine or schedule.
I definitely agree with that. I think I had an advantage to my side of things where at one moment I felt like I needed to cut a lot of people off, but then I just moved to a whole new state and I knew nobody. So I had no friends at all. And I think that was kind of one of my cheat codes when I first started off, is I had no one who could distract me like you're mentioning. And at the same time, there is nobody that could persuade my decision off of anything that I've already set for myself. So 100%, I think it's very important that you look around in your circle and you know that if you're 6 losers around you, you're going to be the 7th. If there's 6 winners around you, you're going to be your 7th. But something you said that was really specific to me that I understand is that people play their roles in your life. And not everybody has to be every role. Not everybody has to be the best friend, the business worker, somebody that you can go to about your feelings. There's got to be people who play their specific role. How long do you believe it took for you to really realize that?
I mean, I just turned 36, so I'll probably say in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
probably the last 6 years, just understanding, everybody doesn't need to be, it's like females are a little different and a little bit more emotional and a little bit, girlfriends will fall out over a birthday dinner.
Yeah.
Right.
For real.
So it's like, oh, this person didn't do, whatever. And it's like for guys, we're a lot more chill and just understanding like, I might have a big, like one of the biggest things, right? I've realized within my friend groups and then also even within my family, I have so many accomplishments, zero cocky, whatever, just seriously, like so many different things. Like 2 weeks ago, closed on 2 buildings, same day, right? That's not even one of those things where it's like, I don't even tell half the time, don't even tell my family or my friends because I'm like, okay, I have my family what's up group and my sister got a good, my sister's a lawyer, owns a law firm here in Dallas and then her husband is a pharmacist, owns a pharmacy in Irving and they're very accomplished within their own right. But, she has a client that just, got out and, because of her and, she got a great review and she puts that in the family chat and everybody's, oh my God, that's amazing. And then I go in and say, oh, I just bought 2 buildings today.
Feels like you're trying to compete. Not from you, but from others.
They don't, it's not even that they feel that way, but I personally feel like, okay, me constantly putting these things in here is overshadowing their accomplishments and then makes their accomplishments look smaller, right? So a lot of times I don't even say anything.
Definitely.
So it's like one of those things. And then your friends, it's like, oh, this guy got, is one of your best friends. He's been working at the same company for 10 years and he just got a 10% raise, which is insane, right? Now he goes from making, 80,000, making 88,000. That's amazing, right? Like that's amazing. Like the average person in America, the average man in America makes $42,000 a year. He's making double the average American. That's amazing. But then I go and say, okay, cool. I just sold, one store for $1 million. I go put that in there or send the wire and put that screenshot in there. What the fuck does that look like?
Yeah.
Right. So
one up competition.
Yeah. So, but that's not your intention, right?
Exactly.
So for me, I've just realized over time, right? Because success snowballs, right? It compounds. So being able to do something like the amount of money every single year, I've pretty much almost doubled my net worth every year since 2014. Right? Am I going to do that this year? Probably not. That's good. That's a lot of money. And not even trying to be cocky. It's impossible, right? Warren Buffett's not going to double his net worth every year, right? Yeah. So it's like, you're not going to double your net worth every single year, but every single year up until this point, I've doubled my net worth. So it's like sitting over here and then being like, okay, cool. I have friends that are accomplishing X, Y, and Z, and then you put it in the group chat and everybody doesn't even double tap it. Now you feel a certain type of way.
It's true.
And you're putting, so I just kind of learned, I'm like, okay, cool. Like not everything's for everyone. And that doesn't mean that they're trying to hate or that doesn't mean X, Y, and Z. It's just that you're doing a little too much. And like, that's not something that you just need to share with everybody.
And your successes will show for themselves as well. I mean, the way that you move, your lifestyle, the different things that are coming over the years, even if you don't have to share or need to share with other people, it will show just from the next time they see you. It will show from, the energy that you provide.
Yeah, but you want to share, the biggest thing with a higher, like you have to have somebody, right? That, cause like, it doesn't feel good. The art of achievement, which I lack the art of achievement, I realized, cause you'll set a goal, you achieve the goal, you went full focused on that goal for years. You accomplish that goal. And then like the next day you're like, okay, what's the next goal? Just like a car.
It's never going to be enough.
Yeah. So, the like, it's like, when I bought the Ferrari, it's like, all right, cool. Like, man, I really want this car, blah, blah. 2 weeks, a month into it, I'm like, man, this is whatever.
What I text you whenever I got the Lambo.
Yeah, same shit.
I said, it's just another car with wheels.
Yeah, for sure. So it's the same thing with the Cullinan. A week later, I'm like, all right, cool. That's why I pay cash for my cars now.
Yeah.
Because if I don't pay cash, if I'm paying a $5,000 a month payment on a luxury car, after 6 months, I'm like, man, get this the hell out of here. Like, I don't want to pay it doesn't matter how much money I have. I don't want to pay that because you're not driving it that much because you're worried about how much miles you're putting on it. You've already had the joy of getting it for, the first 2 weeks of the month. And so I'm like, all right, now from now on, I'm going to, because I did that with the Rari deal, with the Bentley, whatever. I'm like, all right, cool. I had notes on it.
Yeah.
After like a year, I'm like, all right, I got to get rid of this because I'm like, I don't even.
I'm barely driving this
Yeah,
thing.
but it's not even just barely driving. It's like you don't know how to enjoy like buying it as the achievement, right?
Yeah.
And then after a while, you're just like, all right, cool. What's next?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the art of achievement. So it's like if you accomplish something, the first thing you want to do is celebrate it with the people that you love and be like, hey man, and I just closed this deal, woo woo. And that's part of the reason why a lot of times people say, you have to be around people that are on the same level, right?
Right.
Because if I just say, hey, I just closed this deal, $5 million on this deal, whatever, and you're over here kind of trying to figure out how you're gonna pay your rent. I can't say that to you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like being able to, or it comes off as boasting and bragging. And that's the one thing I like to.
Sometimes it's not even boasting and bragging from your side of things. You're just trying to honestly celebrate.
It's not boasting and bragging at all.
But it's from these people's perspective who might not be on the same level as you that might see it that way because they're like, I'm just trying to get off the ball, get off the ground running, and this man's sprinting. Like how am I supposed to keep up? But in your mind, you're like, I'm just trying to celebrate a win. I'm just trying to celebrate, and be grateful that I even got this far. So I think that it's very important that, like I mentioned earlier, you have to be around the certain types of people that you can feel accomplished through, or you might have to spend some time alone. You might have to spend some time alone until you can find the right people for that. I mean, I'm like, for example, before I even met you, I had one friend here. One friend here. I mean, obviously, now I have had more friends, and I've been able to network and grow more through putting myself out there. But one friend, because I knew that I didn't want to put myself in a situation where I wasn't on the same level as other people, and I would just rather be alone doing it. But that kind of brings me to my next question: is like I was building myself up, building Supreme up. When did you know it was time to try to invest in something else? And what type of investments have you done that you showed that, okay, hey, you've already proven that you can build one business. Now you can do more than just that as well.
Yeah. So I'm real big on focus, right? On concentration builds wealth and diversification keeps it. So, like, my dad and my brother's a real estate broker, and he owns a ton of commercial buildings. And he was like, man, you need to start buying the buildings that close in, whatever. And my dad said that for years. So I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. And I want to do that, but I'm not trying to take the capital that I'm reinvesting to go and do that, right? Because that's going to limit my growth. So once I got to a certain point where I was making so much money, because for like living expenses, I probably spend 10% of what I make on like actually enjoying life, right?
Yeah.
The other 90% is complete reinvest. So it's like, okay, if I'm making an X amount of money a year, and I'm able to take 90% of it and reinvest, how much am I reinvesting in Glow, and then how much am I reinvesting in other things? So, probably 3 years ago, September 30th, 2020, that was the first building I bought, and since then I've bought over a dozen. So like, and every single building I have has Glow in it. So like that's the way that I'm like reinvesting my money. So it's still within Glow, it's like vertically integrating the business in a sense. But then I have other investments, like I have the series I just dropped on Instagram, like on the townhomes that I'm developing in Tampa. And so that's gonna be my first ground up multifamily development. So like just, reinvesting in real estate, and then obviously, have, several homes in Tampa and Airbnb those and, all that. So reinvesting in real estate in a sense, but making sure that things make sense. But it's like once you get to a level where you're able to afford to live comfortably within your means, right? And then also have access to capital in case anything was to happen. And then you can really diversify into other things.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing applied for me. I mean, from going from doing dropshipping to now owning 7 different homes out in Dallas and doing real estate. And we even started a transportation business, DFW Transportation. Follow us on Instagram. I knew it was the right time to do those things because I put so much effort into my singular craft first. And I try to become the best at my singular craft first. So, I want to say one last thing about this. Like, how important was it to double down on what you were doing as hard as you could to get your career into the position you were, before diversifying it. Because I see people all the time come talk to me. I want to do Airbnb. I want to do e-commerce. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm like, how are you supposed to be 20% good at all these 5 different things instead of being 100% the best at one and then starting to move to the next?
Yeah. So the average millionaire has 7 streams of income, but the average millionaire made all their money on one stream, right? So that's what people don't realize. So they hear the stat that the average millionaire has 7 streams of income and forget the fact that that person made all their money from one thing. And then when they have their money, then they diversify into the other 6, right? So just like you were saying, for me, I have like 16 different companies, our company being one of them. So I'm diversified into a lot of, different things. But at one point, which that one point was 3 years ago, I had one company.
And that means that you spent close to 7 to 8 years all on just that one company.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm still growing that company like a lot.
Yeah.
3 years ago, we were at 24 locations. We're at 76 now. So it's not as if like I diversified and stopped growing that company. It's like, no, I'm still focused on that company, but the systems and processes and the people are in place, right? To where they can do majority of the work. I'm just overseeing, and then the time that I'm spending. So like when I said, I work 16 plus hours a day, like if I have people in place, then what am I doing for those 16 hours? If I say that I am a master delegator and I give all this stuff to everybody else, then what are you really doing? Both can't be correct, right? Well, all my time is spent on creating these other 15 different businesses. So one business might take me 2 to 3 months of like my almost, singular focus while still giving time to my main business, right? And then once that's done and I have it delegated to somebody, now I'm on the next one and on the next one and on the next one. So those are the things that, and when it comes to diversification, like super important. Concentration on one thing is way more important than diversification. And then once you get to that one thing, then you diversify.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think that you have to be single focused on your goals, single focused on what you want to achieve, know your why, and eliminate any distractions around you that will affect you from getting to that why. And, from now you've turned into one single thought process of starting to try do glow and having one property to over 76, having 16 different businesses, all from just having a dream that you knew you wanted to achieve. So I think that everybody who's watching this should be able to take some of the things that you said, apply it, and they'll be able to see some of the fruition come to life as well. So I want to say I appreciate you being in here.
Appreciate you.
And, we're going to keep growing this business together, man. And that's a wrap today. I hope everybody who's watching understands that with entrepreneurship, it was not an easy path no matter what niche or type of business that you're in. You're going to go through hardships. You're also going to see a lot of great accomplishments come from the work that you put in. But have to put in the work. You have to be single focused, and you have to know that your why is never going to be unstoppable, and you have to truthfully believe in it. It does not matter your occupation, your job, how many kids you have. It does not matter who you are or what you do, but just know that if you have a vision, anything can come to life with the work. So I just want to say I appreciate you being in here, my boy. Had a great podcast with you. If you guys do want to see more of these, let me know in the chat section down below, and I can't wait to keep going and growing the Supreme family. This is AC and Onyi. We out, man. We out.
They gon' want a piece when you got it like that. Like Jake said, we gon' spend it, get it right back. Stack that internet money till the site crash.